The alarm screamed at 6:30 a.m., just as it had for the past 8 years. Sarah Chen rolled over in her cramped Manhattan studio, her body aching despite 9 hours in bed. The sleep tracker on her phone glowed mockingly. Poor sleep quality detected. Again. At 34, she felt like she was drowning in her own life. The marketing agency demanded 12-hour days. Her social calendar overflowed with networking events, and her gym membership sat unused while she grabbed dinner from food trucks at 10 p.m. Every January brought new diet apps, fitness challenges, and promises to herself that this would be the year she finally got it together. But her grandmother's rice bowl sat on the kitchen counter, a quiet reminder of something she'd lost. The small ceramic bowl, cream-colored with delicate blue flowers, had arrived in a box after her Thai grandmother's funeral 2 years ago. Sarah barely remembered the woman who'd raised 7 children in a village outside Chiang Mai, but she kept the bowl out of guilt and sentiment. It looked impossibly tiny next to her oversized dinner plates, barely enough to hold a child's portion. "You're eating like an American now," her mother had said during their last video call, watching Sarah shovel pad thai from a takeout container while scrolling through work emails. "Grandmother would say you've forgotten how to be full." That comment stung because it was true. Sarah couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a meal without multitasking or felt satisfied rather than stuffed. Her body had become a stranger, bloated in the morning, exhausted by afternoon, wide awake at midnight despite bone-deep fatigue. On the subway to work, she noticed him again. The quiet man who sat 3 seats down, probably in his 60s, with silver hair and an unhurried way of breathing. While everyone around him scrolled frantically through phones or gulped oversized coffees, he simply sat, eyes closed, hands folded, as if the chaos of the morning commute couldn't touch him. Sarah had lived in New York long enough to spot tourists, but this man rode the same train every day. His calmness felt almost magnetic in the sea of stressed faces. Today, she watched him pull out a small thermos and pour tea into a cup no bigger than her grandmother's rice bowl. He sipped slowly, each breath deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. The train lurched and Sarah's own coffee sloshed onto her blouse. She cursed under her breath while the man continued drinking his tea, unfazed by the sudden stop. In that moment, she felt the weight of everything she'd been carrying, the sleepless nights, the afternoon energy crashes, the clothes that no longer fit quite right, the constant feeling of being behind on her own life. "Maybe there's another way," she whispered to herself, thinking of that small rice bowl waiting on her counter. That evening, Sarah found herself researching Thai eating habits instead of answering emails. The internet rabbit hole led her to articles about villages where obesity was virtually unknown, where people ate rice and coconut milk daily but stayed naturally lean. She read about portion sizes that would horrify any American nutritionist, about temperatures and timing that seemed to matter more than calories. One phrase kept appearing: metabolic flexibility during sleep. The idea that her body could burn fat while she rested if she just knew how to prepare it properly. For the first time in years, Sarah went to bed before midnight. She placed her grandmother's rice bowl on the nightstand, wondering if such a small thing could possibly hold answers to questions she'd been asking for so long. If you've ever felt tired even after a full night of sleep, or frustrated with diets that don't last, tell us in the comments which part of this story feels familiar. And stay with us for the next chapters. The next morning, Sarah woke up 5 minutes before her alarm. Not refreshed exactly, but curious. She dreamed about her grandmother, a woman she barely remembered, preparing rice in a kitchen with bamboo floors and cross-ventilation that kept the air moving. At lunch, instead of eating a salad at her desk while answering emails, Sarah took the grandmother's bowl to the office kitchen. Her co-workers watched with amusement as she filled the tiny vessel with leftover stir-fry from the company catering. "That's it?" asked Marcus, her cubicle neighbor, gesturing at the small portion. "You'll be hungry in an hour." But something strange happened. Sarah ate slowly, putting down her chopsticks between bites the way she'd seen the man on the train sip his tea. She focused on textures, temperatures, the way the vegetables crunched. For the first time in months, she noticed when she felt satisfied rather than overfull. The afternoon energy crash that usually hit around 3 p.m. never came. That evening, she researched more deliberately. Thai villages, she learned, had specific habits around sleep and temperature. People slept on thin mattresses close to the ground, in rooms designed for airflow rather than insulation. They ate warming spices in the evening to raise body temperature before the natural nighttime cooling that triggered deep sleep and growth hormone release. Sarah looked around her studio apartment. Thick mattress, heavy blankets, sealed windows, heating, pumping dry air all night. Everything designed to trap heat rather than allow her body's natural temperature fluctuations. She ordered a thin cotton futon online and cracked her windows despite the February cold. That night, she made tea with ginger and turmeric, spices that felt foreign on her tongue but warmed her from the inside. She turned off her phone an hour before bed and practiced the gentle breathing she'd observed on the train. The man with the thermos had become her unofficial teacher. She watched him more carefully now, noticing how he never rushed, never checked his phone while drinking tea, never seemed agitated by delays or crowds. When she finally worked up the courage to speak to him, it was because he'd dropped his reading glasses near her seat. "Excuse me," she said, handing them back. "Thank you," he replied in accented English. "You are very kind." "I've noticed you on this train," Sarah said, then immediately felt foolish for admitting she'd been watching him. He smiled. "I am Somchai, from Thailand like you, I think." "Half Thai," Sarah admitted, "but I grew up here. I'm Sarah." "Ah," he nodded knowingly. "You have lost the old ways. This is common for young people in America, always rushing, always eating too much, never sleeping well." The observation stung because it was accurate, but Somchai's voice held no judgment, only gentle recognition. "I've been trying to remember some things," Sarah said, thinking of the rice bowl, the futon arriving tomorrow, the strange peace she'd felt eating slowly in the office kitchen. "The body remembers," Somchai said, "even when the mind forgets. Start with one thing. Very simple. Very consistent." That night, Sarah lay on her regular mattress for the last time, windows cracked, room cooler than usual. She held her grandmother's rice bowl, running her fingers along the smooth ceramic. For the first time in years, she fell asleep before 11 p.m. without scrolling through her phone. She dreamed of bamboo floors and morning light filtering through simple windows, of eating small portions with complete attention, of a nervous system that knew how to rest. The futon arrived on a Thursday. Sarah's back protested the first night. Too firm, too low, too different from the pillow-top mattress she'd considered essential for good sleep. But by the third night, something shifted. She woke up without her usual shoulder tension, her mind clearer despite sleeping fewer hours. Her friend Jessica noticed the change first. "You look different," she said over their weekly coffee date. "Did you get a facial?" Sarah laughed, touching her face self-consciously. She hadn't considered that eating more slowly, sleeping cooler, and reducing her evening screen time might show in her skin. "I've been trying some old habits," she explained, then felt ridiculous. "How do you tell your best friend you've been learning to live from a stranger on the subway and your dead grandmother's rice bowl?" Jessica raised an eyebrow. "What kind of habits?" Sarah explained the futon, the small portions, the evening tea ritual she'd developed. Jessica listened with growing skepticism. "So you're basically starving yourself and sleeping on the floor?" "Sarah, that sounds like diet culture dressed up as meditation." "It doesn't feel like that," Sarah protested, but doubt crept in. Was she just falling for another wellness trend, this time disguised as cultural heritage? That doubt followed her to work, where Marcus commented on her consistent energy levels. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up. You haven't had a 3 p.m. crash in weeks." The confirmation felt good, but Jessica's words nagged at her. At lunch, instead of using the rice bowl, She grabbed a normal plate and filled it with her usual portion. The extra food felt heavy in her stomach, and the familiar afternoon sluggishness returned. On the train home, Somchai was reading a slim book in Thai. Sarah sat closer today, emboldened by their earlier conversation. "My friend thinks I'm being extreme," she said without preamble. Somchai looked up, unsurprised by the non sequitur. "What do you think?" "I don't know. I feel better, but maybe I'm just convincing myself." "In Thailand, we have a saying," he said gently. "The tree that bends in the storm survives while the rigid tree breaks. Your friend sees change and thinks it is breaking, but maybe it is bending back to natural shape." That weekend, Sarah visited her doctor for her annual physical. Dr. Rodriguez drew blood for the usual panels and asked about her stress levels, sleep quality, energy patterns. "Actually, I've been feeling better lately," Sarah admitted. "Sleeping more consistently, eating smaller portions more slowly." "Doctor." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Any particular reason for the changes?" Sarah hesitated. "I've been learning about habits from Thai culture. My grandmother was Thai." "Interesting. Well, whatever you're doing seems to be working. Your resting heart rate is lower than last year, and you seem calmer overall." The validation felt more solid than compliments about her skin or energy. Her body was responding to these changes in measurable ways. That evening, Sarah prepared her tea with extra care. Ginger, turmeric, a touch of honey. She sat on her futon with the rice bowl beside her, not eating from it, but simply holding it. The ceramic had warmed from her hands, and she understood suddenly that this wasn't about the bowl itself, but about the rhythm it represented. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Sorry if I was harsh earlier. You do seem happier. Maybe I'm just jealous that you found something that works." Sarah smiled, sipping her tea slowly. Change was always threatening to people around you, even when it was good change. But her body was telling her a different story than her friend's fears. For the first time since starting these habits, she felt truly confident that she was moving towards something rather than just running away from discomfort. Would you rather force yourself with willpower, or redesign your environment and habits like this character is learning to do? Comment which path makes more sense to you, and share this episode with someone who needs a gentler approach to change. 3 months later, Sarah's mother visited from California. The moment she walked into the studio, her eyes went to the futon on the floor and the small rice bowl on the counter. "You kept grandmother's bowl," she said softly, picking up the ceramic piece. "I wondered where it had gone." "I've been using it," Sarah said, feeling suddenly self-conscious about explaining her entire transformation. Her mother examined the bowl carefully, running her fingers along the delicate blue flowers. "She used this every day for 70 years. Always said Americans eat with their eyes instead of their stomachs." Over dinner that night, Sarah found herself serving rice in the small bowl while her mother watched with growing recognition. "You're eating like her," she said quietly. "Slow, present. When did you learn to do that?" Sarah explained about Somchai, the research, the gradual changes in her sleep and energy. Her mother listened without the skepticism Sarah had expected. "I should have taught you these things," her mother said finally. "But I was so busy becoming American, I forgot what was worth keeping." The conversation opened something in Sarah she hadn't expected. Her mother shared memories of visiting Thailand as a child, of her own mother's rituals around food and rest that had seemed antiquated at the time, but now felt like lost wisdom. She never owned a scale, her mother remembered, never counted anything. But she knew exactly when she'd had enough, and she slept like a baby every night until she died at 93. Work provided the real test of Sarah's new patterns. The agency landed a huge client that required 2 months of 14-hour days and weekend work. Her old pattern would have been to survive on coffee and takeout, sleep 4 hours a night, and crash completely when the project ended. Instead, she protected her evening ritual fiercely. No matter how late she worked, she still prepared her tea, still slept on the futon with the window cracked, still ate lunch slowly from the small bowl while her colleagues inhaled sandwiches at their desks. "How are you not dying right now?" Marcus asked during the third week of intense deadlines. He looked exhausted, surviving on energy drinks and sheer willpower. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, and it was true. She felt tired but not wired, busy but not frantic. The sustained calm that had developed over months didn't disappear under pressure the way her old adrenaline-based energy had. Somchai noticed too. "You have found your rhythm," he observed one morning when she mentioned the work stress. "Now you bend, but do not break." The project succeeded, but more importantly, Sarah succeeded. While her colleagues needed weeks to recover, she simply returned to her normal energy levels without the usual post-deadline crash. Dr. Rodriguez called with her follow-up lab results. "Your inflammatory markers have improved significantly," she said. "Whatever lifestyle changes you've made, they're having real physiological effects. Your metabolism is functioning much more efficiently." That evening, Sarah sat on her futon holding her grandmother's rice bowl and marveled at how different her life felt. Not dramatically different. She still lived in the same tiny apartment, still worked at the same demanding job. But something fundamental had shifted in how she moved through her days. The bowl felt lighter in her hands, or maybe she was stronger. Either way, she understood now that the wisdom hadn't been in the object itself, but in the rhythm it taught her, the simple act of knowing when enough was enough. 6 months after finding the rice bowl, Sarah stood in her doctor's office, staring at lab results that didn't make sense, according to everything she'd been told about weight loss and health. "Your metabolic flexibility has improved dramatically," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "Your body is switching between burning carbohydrates and fat much more efficiently, especially during sleep. It's like you've reset your metabolic age by about 10 years. Sarah thought about all the diet programs she'd tried, all the extreme workout plans that promised similar results through force and deprivation. None of them had changed the fundamental numbers the way these small, sustainable habits had. "The interesting thing," Dr. Rodriguez continued, "is that your weight loss has been modest, but your body composition has changed significantly. You've gained muscle mass while losing visceral fat, and your sleep quality scores are in the optimal range." Walking home, Sarah realized the secret had been hiding in plain sight for months. It wasn't about the specific habits themselves, the futon, the small bowl, the tea ritual. It was about designing an environment where her nervous system could finally downshift from the chronic stress state that had become her normal. That evening, she called her mother. "I think I understand now why grandmother lived so long," Sarah said. "It wasn't just what she ate or how she slept, it was that she never fought against her body's natural rhythms." "What do you mean?" her mother asked. "Every diet I've tried was about forcing myself to do things my body didn't want to do. Eat less, exercise more, ignore hunger, push through fatigue. But the Thai habits, they work with the body instead of against it." Sarah thought about the cooling effect of sleeping closer to the floor, how it triggered her body's natural fat-burning processes during deep sleep. The way eating slowly from a small bowl satisfied her hunger signals instead of overwhelming them. The evening tea ritual that helped her nervous system transition from work stress to rest. "I was never broken," she said, the realization hitting her fully for the first time. "I was just living in an environment that made healthy choices harder and unhealthy choices automatic." Her mother was quiet for a long moment. "I think you're right. In Thailand, the whole village supported those rhythms. Here, we have to create them ourselves." The next morning on the train, Sarah shared her insight with Somchai. "My laboratory results show I'm healthier than I've been in years," she told him. "But I didn't do anything extreme. I just stopped fighting myself." Somchai smiled. "In Buddhism, we call this right effort. Not forcing, not being lazy, but finding the middle path where change happens naturally." "How did you know I needed to learn this?" Sarah asked. You had the look, he said gently. Very tired, but not from working. Tired from trying to be someone your body didn't want to be. Very common in America. That afternoon, Jessica joined Sarah for lunch and watched her eat mindfully from the small rice bowl. I owe you an apology, Jessica said. When you started all this, I thought you were just falling for another wellness fad. But you actually look younger than you did 6 months ago. I feel younger, Sarah admitted. Not because I'm trying to fight aging, but because I stopped aging myself prematurely with stress and chaos. Jessica picked up the rice bowl, examining it curiously. It's so small. How do you feel satisfied? I eat slower, so my hunger signals have time to work properly, and I stop when I'm satisfied instead of when I'm full. Turns out there's a big difference between those two things. That night, Sarah placed the rice bowl on her nightstand, as she did every evening. But tonight, she truly understood what it represented. Not deprivation or discipline, but a return to listening to her body's wisdom, instead of overriding it with willpower and force. The secret had never been about becoming someone different. It had been about becoming herself again. 1 year later, Sarah's life looked remarkably similar from the outside. Same apartment, same job, same train route. But anyone who knew her well could see the fundamental shift. She moved through her days with an economy of energy that seemed almost effortless. The frantic quality that had characterized her 30s had been replaced by something steadier, more sustainable. Her mother visited again for Sarah's 35th birthday, bringing a gift that made Sarah's eyes fill with tears. A traditional Thai tea set, complete with a small ceramic pot and cups that matched her grandmother's rice bowl. I thought you might want to complete the set, her mother said softly. They spent the evening preparing tea together, her mother sharing stories about her own mother's rhythms, the way she woke before dawn, not to be productive, but to sit quietly and breathe. The way she prepared food with complete attention, treating meals as meditation rather than fuel. I've been thinking about moving back to Thailand for a few months, her mother admitted, to remember what else I've forgotten. Sarah understood the impulse. These habits had reconnected her to something larger than just personal health, a way of being that prioritized sustainability over intensity, rhythm over force. At work, Sarah had become the person others came to for advice about managing stress during high-pressure projects. She never preached or explained her methods in detail, but her consistent energy and calm presence spoke for itself. Marcus had started bringing smaller lunches and eating away from his computer after watching Sarah's approach for months. I don't know what you're doing, he told her, but whatever it is seems to actually work long-term. Dr. Rodriguez had started referring other patients to learn about environmental design and nervous system regulation. Sarah's case illustrates something important, she explained during a conference presentation. When we work with the body's natural systems instead of against them, we see sustained improvements in metabolism, sleep, and stress resilience. On the train, Somchai had become a genuine friend. Some mornings they sat in comfortable silence. Other times they talked about the challenge of maintaining traditional rhythms in a modern world. You have become a bridge, he told her one day, between the old ways and the new life. This is important work. Sarah thought about that as she prepared her evening tea, following the ritual that had become as natural as breathing. The small rice bowl sat beside her cup, both pieces catching the soft light from her lamp. She pulled out her phone to capture the moment, not for social media, but for herself. The image showed something that statistics and lab results couldn't convey, a person who had found peace with her own rhythms. Later that evening, she wrote in the journal she'd started keeping, "Today marks 1 year since I first ate lunch from grandmother's bowl. My weight has stabilized at a place that feels natural rather than forced. My sleep is consistent and restorative. My energy lasts throughout the day without artificial stimulation. But more than any of that, I feel at home in my own body for the first time in decades." She paused, then added, The secret was never about discipline or willpower. It was about creating an environment where taking care of myself became the easiest choice instead of the hardest one. As she prepared for bed on her futon, windows slightly cracked despite the winter cold, Sarah held the rice bowl one more time. Tomorrow, she would use it again for lunch, would prepare tea in the evening, would sleep close to the ground in a room designed for rest rather than comfort. These habits had become invisible to her now, woven so completely into her days that they required no conscious effort. The bowl had taught her something profound, that the most powerful changes often came disguised as the smallest ones, and that wisdom was often about remembering rather than learning something entirely new. The ceramic felt warm in her hands, carrying the weight of generations who understood that health was not a destination to reach through force, but a rhythm to return to through gentle, consistent attention to what the body had always known. If this story reminded you that real transformation comes from small habits repeated over time, not from overnight fixes, subscribe to the channel, tell us which country you watch from, and invite someone to start this journey with you in the next story.